Yeah, 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 yeah. Look. Never switch on the homies in the day ones. They didn't want to open doors, so we made some. Take a bow on these haters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena here with Maeve and Jerry. And today, our guest is a Stanley Cup champion with the New York Rangers, longtime NHL goaltender, broadcaster, and a leading voice of the NHL Alumni, Glenn Healy. Great to have you.
Well, thank you. Some friendly faces here. Stan and I go way back.
Way back is a small town in Georgia, so leave it out of this, okay? I have to say what I wanted you to say to this man, who's one of my all-time favorites. I wanted you to ask him whether or not it's true that Glenn Healy is funnier than Patrick Flatley.
Well, Flats really, when we played together, he didn't contribute much of anything. And then when we had our show, Heels and Flats, which was a real big hit on Sportsnet. In fact, it was an intermission piece. He didn't contribute anything to that show either. So the contributions Pat's made to me in my life are zero. And I'm okay with that because we're still friends. But, it's always good. It's like Sonny and Cher, right? Cher could sing and Sonny couldn't. That's Flats. Flats is Sonny. He couldn't sing. He couldn't dance. He couldn't act. He couldn't skate. The list goes on and on. But I love him to death. He's a dear friend. And the show was a big hit. And it was mostly because of Stan and me. And that's it.
I want to tell you something that you didn't know. One of the greatest wins in history was the Islanders beating Pittsburgh in that unbelievable series. But I contributed to that, and I got no credit at all, okay? So I'm involved as the talent, and I'm supposed to be doing this and that, and I'm sitting in a seat, okay? It's in the third period, and the Islanders have a lead, and I'm a very superstitious guy. And all of a sudden, I don't know how many minutes, not too many minutes left, my producer calls me, Kevin Meininger calls me on the thing, and he says, get downstairs for the post game. And I said to him, I said, how can I get downstairs? He said, I'm sitting here in the good luck seat. I'm not going to go downstairs and ruin it for the Islanders and Al Arbor and Glenn Healy playing probably one of the greatest games in goal I've ever seen. So I stayed in the seat, and all of a sudden I get this voice, what the hell are you doing? Get the hell down there. And I very, very reluctantly got out of the seat. And as I went down to the studio, they scored a goal. And I said, I'm going to ruin this game. I can't. What's going to happen? And then they tied the game. And I said, oh. And of course, I felt that if you guys had lost that game, it would have been all over the papers. Fischler blew it, period.
Well, you know what? You're right. The game we were up 3-1 with 3 minutes left. And Uwe Krupp and Mario Lemieux had a stick swinging fight to the right of me in the net. And I thought they both went to the box for 2 minutes, right? And I'm looking, and I'm really good at math, Stan, right? So I'm like 3 minutes minus 2. Man, that's a minute. We've won the game. We have, there's no way that Mario gets on the ice. He's going to get 2 goals on me in 1 minute. We have won this game. Game 7 is ours. And that was the biggest mistake that I made, because when you put the score and the result ahead of the effort to get there, well, it was 3-3 before I got my second drink of water. And at that point, it was icing the puck. We were having a parade in Hauppauge. Then we'd ice the puck and have a parade in Huntington. And then we'd ice the puck and have a parade in Northport. Like, icing the puck was heroic. But eventually it was David Volek who won the game. And, the great part about that is the ownership wanted to trade David Volek for the longest time. He didn't play. And at the end of the game, when we won, we went to where in Pittsburgh where the bus waits underneath. And I was standing beside Al Arbor, and, he was so happy because Scotty Bowman's a big rival, and he beat Scotty Bowman with Scotty and all his weapons. And look what we had. Pat Flatley with one leg, no Pierre Turgeon. So, it ends and the ownership comes over and they're happy. And it's great, Al. Good job. And he looked at the ownership group and said, "What do you effing think of David Volek now?" And at that point, I said, "Time for me to go on the bus." Boom, I was gone. But Al was the guy who made that happen. We lost Pierre Turgeon in the Washington series. He sat a chair down in the middle of the room and he asked Pat Flatley if he could win, or just not win, tie a shift with Mario. And the answer is yes. And then Ray Ferraro, and then Mullen, and then the next Stevie Thomas. Great, we've got the first period done. Let's go to the second period. He said, really, we just got to tie all these shifts and win one shift in overtime. And when we got to overtime and David Volek scored that goal, I thought, man, Al Arbor was right. We won one shift. There you go. Moving on. So miss the man dearly, but what a great time with the Islanders and great people. And I love those guys. We're still friends to this day. Pat and I just hung out for the whole weekend. So I might be 63, but I really feel like I'm 80. So it's humidity years. 63 going on 80 because of my one weekend with Patrick.
Listen, just one asterisk on that play. Ferraro passing it instead of shooting. What a great way that thing ended.
Yeah. And Pittsburgh would have a different view, right? It's always the skew. And when they had a change that happened during the game. And so the defenseman stepped on the ice. I won't name him, but he stepped on the ice. But he took a step forward, and that jumped the 2-on-1. If he had taken a step backwards and not been so aggressive because he looked at me in the net and thought, time to put an end to this, then there would have not been a 2-on-1. There would not have been a pass. There would not have been a David Volek goal. But, hey, if my aunt had blank, she'd be my uncle. So that being said, I talked to those guys from that Pittsburgh team, Mario, and we just had time with Kevin Stevens and Mark Recchi, and they both said that was our best team. That was the team that was the best of all the teams we played on. And how the hell did that happen? Because it shouldn't have happened. And at that point, I agreed with them. You're right, but it did happen. And that's why we watch sports, and that's why we love it.
Going back to early in your career, was there a moment where you realized, I can play at this level?
Well, I'll be honest, I was never drafted. So I was a kid who went to Western Michigan. My mom and my dad fought in World War II with the Scottish and then came over to Canada. There was no job in Scotland, no money. So they emigrated to Canada. And he wanted to have the first educated Healy. So I was the guy to go to college to get a degree. And I wasn't drafted. I wasn't very good. And I ended up playing in a CCHA championship game. And Rogie Vachon was in the crowd. He was watching Gary Galley and Dave Ellett, two established drafted players. And I happened to have the same game I had in game 7. I don't know why. It wasn't what I ate. I didn't sleep better. I wasn't smarter. I didn't lose a bunch of weight and I was quicker. It just happened. They outshot us by about 50 shots. We won the game. And Rogie Vachon said, I don't care what we do with these two guys, sign him. And that was the journey that began for me. And I ended up capitalizing on something that was an opportunity. It wasn't an obstacle. It was an opportunity. And my career began from that moment on. But to have played 16 years till I was 40, certainly talent wasn't when I got in line, that God gave me all of that. Maybe there was an intangible side of the ledger that I got a little bit more of. But at the end of the day, it was a great journey, but it wasn't supposed to be that journey, Elena. It was not. It was supposed to be get an education, go to work, and man, we're proud of you because you've worked hard at your schooling. And then the rest happened. And before I knew it, I was 41 going, now what am I going to do? I haven't really done anything other than play hockey. So it worked out for the best. And that opportunity came. And for whatever reason, someone up above said, take care of this guy in this particular night. I was lucky, one of the lucky ones.
So you went to Western Michigan for 4 years. What was your degree in?
Daycare, babysitting. No, I shouldn't discredit Western Michigan that way. I started off. I was going to be a computer science major, Jerry. Okay, sat there in class the first day. Let's stretch. Here we go. All right, everybody. I want you to go home. I want you to write a stopgap program. Blah blah blah. Just it's going to be so easy. It's just a 10-minute program. We'll see you tomorrow. I went to the computer hall, and this is way before anyone's time but Stan and I. And you had to wait in line to get on a computer, and they were these big rooms with big computers. And I sat down to do my stopgap program, and here you go, Mr. Computer Science Major. It took me 20 minutes to figure out how to turn the computer on. And the guy beside me goes, "Do you want me to help you with that?" And then there was a button on the back, right? So I turned it on. I was like, "Oh, okay." And meanwhile, they're all lined up to get on my computer, giving me the old, "What is this guy, like a complete moron? Like not the maven, but the moron." So I left there and I said, "You know what? I'm a business major. That's what I am. Forget this computer stuff. No one needs to know about that." So then I got my degree in marketing. I ended up staying later in one of the summers to work a hockey school. So I got my degree in finance. So I had a double major, and it worked out great. I had 4 great years. I loved the people. I loved the program. I loved everything about Western Michigan. Hashtag they did win the national championship last year. But let's not talk about that. But that was 4 great years. And what it did for me is it took all the pressure off of trying to have to make the NHL. I didn't need to make it. If I didn't make it, I'm okay, because I learned I can earn. It was as simple as that. And then the rest happened. And, maybe some of that, that learning helped me not to buy a bar in Toronto, Ontario, or a restaurant, or all those things that so many of us, think we're good at and we're not. So, but for the most part, it was just an incredible 4 years.
You did something very, very important, and that is you have built the Alumni Association, NHL Alumni Association, to a position of eminence. And I remember the early days, and to see what you've done to enhance it. How did you decide to get into to do what you did and to build it into this tremendous resource for the players?
Well, I didn't plan on it in any way. I was comfortable and happy working my one Saturday night with Hockey Night in Canada. It was a little dodgy and stale, but I got a call one day, and my wife handed me the phone and said, "Hold on, Wayne, here he is." And I answered and said, "Hello," and yeah, it's Gretz, and I'm thinking, it's either one of you 3 guys punking me. Okay, this is that moment that, like, come on, like, he's got my home number. So he just said to me, "Fix it." Dave Semenko passed away without getting a doctor or a wellness plan or a medical. He protected me my whole career. Can we not protect these guys? So at that point, I asked him when he was going to come to Toronto, and I said, basically, the message was this: "All right, baby Jesus, you best be in the manger come Christmas morning, because everyone's going to want to know, this is going to be made or broken by the players. You need to have all the big guys involved to help everybody. And if you're involved, then we have a chance at building something special." And what is special? It's very simple. How do we make tomorrow better than today for players? Short career, long life. They never, ever meet up the right way. The game ends, the music stops, interconnectivity stops, purpose, structure, all of those things. So how do we make that long life as beautiful as we can make it? Well, it's going to be the players that are going to make this. And they're the ones that got together and said to me, "Put me in a hockey card set. Put me on a video game. Let's get with the NHL." And when we showed up at the NHL, yes, we showed up with the big guys. We showed up with Wayne. when it came to our healthcare plan that we just navigated and solidified this year, it was Bobby Orr, it was Ray Bork, it was Johnny Busick, it was Wayne Gretzky, it was Pat Flatley. I could go down the list of 100 players that showed up with me. It was Ty Domi who gave one of the most physical, aggressive, and passionate meetings I've ever been involved with, as you would know from Ty. But that said to the players, we need to put the last brick in the wall, and we're going to help you put it in. And they went to Gary and said, put the last brick in the wall. And Gary did. It's the players that have made this. But that was the start of the journey. And then realizing that once you open the door and players need help, they're going to come. You want to provide water to Arabs, they will come. That's what our chief medical officer told me, and he was right. And they have come. And they know that this place, this office I'm in, is a safe place. They can come to me with any issue. It'll never get outside these walls. It's our locker room, and we will get the help and hope that everybody needs to have a better tomorrow than today. That's the journey as it began, and the journey is not stopping now. This is just the start of what we want to create for players that deserve it and have earned it. Players that you followed for many years, Stan, and at times probably thought, I feel sad. He deserves better. We're going to give them better.
What do you think is the biggest challenge players face after retiring?
Well, it's different for every player. And like, the group that Stan followed, maybe in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I'm aging you, Stan, but, they had different issues back then. And we had to build solutions for those issues. But we also have the current players, that have gone through COVID, that are different, that have different issues as well. So what I'm building, yes, is good for me and for the players that I played with and the players before, but I also recognize the current players have different issues that are going to arise. And mental wellness might be the biggest tsunami for them. And so I've got to build a whole bunch of different solutions for them that maybe a guy who's 80 years old is not going to ever come to you and go, I got a mental wellness issue. I'm not feeling so secure and I've got anxiety. You're not going to hear that out of a guy who's a Hall of Famer who's 83. But boy, you're going to hear it about a guy who's 23 and needs to have a hope and help for them. The other issue, I think, and we're the only sports entity to do it, is we help the wives as well. I really believe that if it's not right in your home, it's not right with you. So help the wives, help the kids. And so we have a social worker fully designed and designated for just the wives. And some of the wives are looking after players that have dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. And that's a terrible, kind of hand to be dealt in life. But, she will look after them. And when I hired her, I didn't know if she would be busy or not. And she was full within 2 days. Clearly the right hire. And we want to keep adding on to it. So all of those things, taking care of the family dynamic, taking care of the transition, taking care of players that, I don't want players to get to that top of the triangle where there's an acute intervention and we've got to put a player in rehab. Let's invert the triangle and take care of them before they get to that. So it's an ongoing thing. It changes daily. And maybe 5 years from now, we'll be talking about a different subject. But the players have helped me build this. They're the ones that have told me this is what we need, and we built it.
That's incredible.
Going back to your playing career, I'd like to know about your because you got signed out of Western Michigan, signed by the Kings, right?
Yep.
You played one game in 85, 86, I think it was. And can you tell us about your first NHL game?
That's one more than you, Jerry. That's all I got to say about that one. Tell me about your one game in 85. I don't know. Well, there was
I made it to semi-pro. That's my claim.
I was down in New Haven, and I was playing in the minors. And, back then, like you split farm clubs. So half were with the Rangers, half were with the Kings. Like we had Pierre LaRouche on the team. You had 50 goal scorers that were sent to the minors that had no rights, no arbitration. Mike Rogers was playing on the team. He had 50 goals in Hartford. You had Glenn Hanlon there. It it was a who's who of players, and I'm down in the minors trying to figure my way out, and obviously there was a call up and there was a suspension, so I got called up to the NHL, and I can still remember like one of my first games, standing on the bench against the Oilers and watching Gretzky to Messier to Curry to Coffey to Gretzky to Messier, Coffey scores, and Pete Demers at the time was the trainer, looked at me, goes, "Hey, stop looking at those guys with Google eyes and asking for autographs. You could be in the net." And every game I've been a trainer for, he was the trainer. Every time we play the Oilers, the other goalie always plays the third period, and he was right. Here you go, in the net you go. But look at just getting a chance to play your first game, a dream come true. That to me was just a spectacular moment of, if I never do anything in hockey again, I've climbed Kilimanjaro. I've climbed the mountain. And everybody in my family would be so proud. And then to take it the next step and to play and to win a cup, that was not even in my dreams when I was on the ice for that very first game, the first time. And I'll be honest, I tears in my eyes, like, I can't believe I'm here. It is completely a dream come true. Very lucky, one of the lucky ones. But once you step in that net, though, oh boy, now you're starting to get measured, and you better be good at what you do. And at the time, I wasn't ready yet. I was like a whiskey in Scotland in the Highlands that's not quite ripe enough yet to break the cask. I needed more time, and that time was in New Haven. Robbie Fatorik was my coach, and he was just a great mentor for me and really helped me to learn what it took to be a pro and what it took to be a guy who's going to stick around for a long time and have the confidence. I was lucky to have a guy, Frank Lodato, who worked with the Dolphins in football when they were undefeated, and he worked with Robbie to help me with visualization and positive self-talk. And so again, the journey's not done alone. It's a whole village that helps you. And those guys were really influential in my life and my career and helped me play till I was way over the hill and played way, way beyond what I should have played.
Glenn, why do you think the Russian goalies are so good? Do they have a different training?
Well, first off, you're talking to a 5'8" Scottish guy. Okay. So let's start with that birth defect. That's a problem. They're big, they are fit, and they are tough as nails between the ears, I think. And positionally, they've got it all figured out. You go back to Tretiak. Look at the training regime that Tretiak was under back in the day, and that didn't stop. They didn't go after 72. Paul Henderson scored. Time to rearrange the chairs on the deck. No, the Titanic kept the chairs where they were going to do it, and the entire world has caught up to Canada, and even the U.S. is trailing. But Finland, the way they train their goaltenders, and Sweden, the way they train their goaltenders. I mean, the guy who's got my number in the rafters, number 30 with the Rangers, Lundqvist. I mean, I always knew my sweater was going to get retired. I just didn't think it was going to be someone else's name on it, right? So look at all these countries. They've just, their training, the way they, more practice than games. It's exceptional how all the other countries have caught up. And you're right. I mean, Bobrovsky is just a treat to watch. Vasilevsky, a treat to watch. And one of the reasons Tampa won the cups they've won, Florida's won the cups they've won, starts in net, typically a Norris defenseman playing the blue line, and strength up the middle. The recipe for success is not hard. Every team has, kind of followed it. The Rangers did. Mike Richter in net, Brian Leetch on defense, Mark Messier at center ice. Okay, that's a pretty good start. What's the finish? 35 pounds over top of your head, the Stanley Cup.
You're a smart guy, okay? I'm going to give you a 5-second riddle to solve, and then I'll tell you why I'm giving you the riddle, okay? The riddle is, what do you call a guy who hangs out with musicians?
Washed up?
No, the answer is, the guy who hangs out with musicians is a drummer.
Okay, wow.
So
Yeah.
I'm bringing that up because you are the only guy in the history of the NHL who I know who knows what the hell to do with the bagpipes. How did that start?
Well, you bring up a good point because I consider myself to be the fifth Beatle, right? Because think about that. Ringo Starr got to be a drummer, as you mentioned. The other drummer quit. Like this guy must be regretting life forever. So drummers matter too. But yeah, when I was a kid, again, Scottish background, that music was a big part of our family culture. Irish, Scottish, Celtic, like it's the fabric of our being in a lot of ways. And so played at a young age. Wasn't very good. Learned from probably the second best piper in the world, catapulted to a different level. Loved every bit of playing. It's a intoxicating instrument. I love playing it. We've done many concerts with Paul McCartney. We've done Carnegie Hall. Vimy Ridge was probably one of the most inspirational experiences I've ever been through. With the 90th recommemoration of the memorial at Vimy, we played all over the world, and the instrument to me it's a great release. For years, Stan, I used to play at all these different venues, and I could hear people in the corner going, "Is that Glenn Healy?" And someone else would go, "No, that guy's too fat." And I could hear them, and I'm like, "I'm not fat." Or he's too short. When we played from Maple Leaf Gardens closing to the Air Canada Center, I played with the 48th Highlanders, and my picture ended up in the paper, and then that was it. The secret was out that is the fat short guy. That is him. So now I couldn't dance around and just be incognito, but I love the instrument. I love playing it, and we've got one of the best bands in the world, one of the best bands in Canada. And when we get on stage, we get playing. It's a Zen moment that I just go, I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm loving every bit of it. And my wife plays in the band; she's exceptional. It's just a really good thing when you finish playing. And we'll go back to Pat Flatley. He said to me, he goes, when you started playing with that band, I thought, what are you doing with that? That's stupid. What a waste of time. And then he came on one band trip on the bus and saw the food and the beer and the whiskey. And then he went, now I know why you do this. You have a lot of fun. I'm like, yes, thank you, Flats. Now he's got no musical talent, so he's never allowed in. But it is a great, great journey for me post career.
I asked you that question before we started. How hard is it to learn to play the pipes?
Well, it is not like your guitar where 5 chords can get you anywhere around a campfire. It's probably a little less difficult than the whatever number of keys are on a piano. That might be a little bit more difficult, and learning theory and, chording and keys and pitches and all that stuff. But it requires a whole lot of stuff. I would say this about the pipes. It's misunderstood because there's no other instrument that people are willing to play publicly so poorly. Like I hear some of the guys that get out to play, some of the bands. I'm not going to name anybody in any city particularly, but and it is screeching to your ears. You would never just wheel out on a piano in a lobby of a hotel playing, brum dum dum brum dum dum, and think that you are Mozart. But bagpipes, it seems to be this wait to hear this, and then it's wait till you don't want to hear this. But it took a while. It requires a little bit of conscious learning. But once you get it, it's like anything. It's like riding a bike. You never think about how you do it. You just get on it and off you go. And it all comes together musically the right way.
You're going to think I'm a bit of a jerk asking this, or actually, let me rephrase that. You're going to think I'm more of a jerk for asking this. But you're playing for the Kings, and I would say you're the starting goal. You're playing most of the games, and then the Kings trade for Kelly Rudy. he comes in. How did that affect your mindset, and were you cool with the trade, and where did you and Rudy get along?
So, Jerry, think about this. So I get to the Kings. We're wearing yellow pants, yellow sweater, yellow helmet. Okay. We stink. We can beat anybody up anytime, any place. We just can't win games. And we have more tough guys, from Tiger Williams to J.P. Kelly to Jay Wells to Larry Playfair. Go down the list. I mean, Ken Baumgartner, like, bring it on. You want to brawl in the alley? Bye-bye. You're done. Okay. And then we get this guy, Wayne Gretzky, unbelievably comes to our team. We no longer wear the yellow pants. We have the beautiful Kings jersey that they wear today. Our Meet the Kings night, Meet the Kings. We had Neil Diamond sing with Paul Anka. We had Ronald Reagan. We had John Candy. We had Tom Hanks. I pulled up that night, paparazzi in the front of where we had it at the Brown Derby. I pulled up with Paul Gay. I pulled up with Paul Fenton and Lyle Fair, and myself driving a black Ford Escort in LA with no air conditioning. And as we got out of the car and the paparazzi took their pictures, they stopped and I could hear them say, "Who are they?" And I'm like, "We're the team." Like, sorry, but we're not Paul Anka or Neil Diamond. Anyways, that was how the journey started for Wayne. Now, Wayne came from Grant Fuhr, Mark Messier, and he's got me. I used to stand up for the national anthem, and that was it for the rest of the game. So for us to take the next step, for us to go where we wanted to go, we needed an upgrade net, and it wasn't me. And Kelly Rudy was that guy. And there are very few goaltenders that I've not gotten along with better than Kelly Rudy. Him and I would sit together, and we to this day love each other. We joke about those days when we sat together and told, Grant Fuhr stories, because they all had the Grant Fuhr stories, right? Which were, somewhere in the neighborhood of this. Remember when Grant Fuhr played the third period in Kodiak work boots and he made 77 saves and no one got a goal past him? You remember those days? And then there's me and Kelly going, we can't even make the third save before they score a goal. Okay, so we had great fun with that. But, we had a great experience together, but they needed him to go to the next step, not me. I wasn't ready yet. I needed to go to the Islanders to learn what it was to be a pro, to learn what it was like to be a starter, and then to go to the next step, which is to go to the Rangers and be a backup, because I wasn't good enough to win a cup there either. But I was part of a team that could put it together to win. So no harm, no foul. It was good, smart, and the right move. And look at where the organization went. One win away from a Stanley Cup.
This is a painful segue, because I was covering the Islanders for a long time. And we had this fantastic 1993 event. And then the next thing we know, you've been sent to the Rangers, and we get Ronnie Hextall. What kind of stupidity? What was behind? That was one of the dumbest moves, and painful. And you go to the Rangers. Oh my God! Why did that happen?
Well, I think we had new ownership, and we had after we beat Pittsburgh and then Montreal went on to win the cup. We lost to Montreal. We had our end of the year experience, and again, my good buddy Pat Flatley, he's been nothing but great for my career. So he writes on a napkin what my contract demands were, and they weren't large, Stan. They were probably less than you were making at Sportsnet. So hands it to the ownership group. They looked at it, crumpled it up, and threw it at me. So I knew at that point I'm probably not going to be back. And so at that point, then, Phil Esposito and Neil Smith, they concocted some arrangement where they could grab me out of Anaheim. I was one of the goalies picked in the expansion draft, but then Tampa Bay could pick one other player from the draft based on the expansion rules from the year before. They picked me. They traded me for like a Rob Zaminer pick. I end up on the Rangers. All of this is happening while I'm in Ireland with no cell phone, dancing around the country, having the time of our life. And again, it wasn't until Pat Flatley was in the Brazen Head pub, which is one of the oldest pubs in Dublin, and he had talked to his mom to make sure life was okay. And everything's good at home, Mom. And she goes, "Yes, Patrick, it's great, but you're not going to believe it. Glenn's been traded to the Rangers." And he thought she had gone senile and got her to read the newspaper article. And sure enough, he was the one who came and told me, "You're a Ranger." Now, at that point, clearly to every Islander fan, I was Benedict Arnold, even though I had nothing to do with leaving. And then, same thing when it came to the Rangers, they didn't like me because I was an Islander. So it took a while for there to be a little bit of a love affair, but it wasn't pleasant for a while. And I got to believe that I had no idea that this was coming if you had asked me after that season was over. But first day of training camp, if you recall, we showed up, we went to London, England. We did the French's Mustard Cup, which was a great little tournament. We played the Maple Leafs 3 games, destroyed them all 3 games. And I said to my wife, this is the team that could win the cup. And we did those many, many days later. So everything happens for a reason in life. And that, Stan, was a pretty good reason to have been Benedict Arnold and a traitor and all of these things. And I don't think I was any of it.
Well, the sequel is that my kids were Islander fans, particularly my son Simon, who was a goalie before he had gotten ill. And the only thing that Simon felt that was redeemed from you being gone to the Rangers was that in an exhibition game, your replacement, Ron Hextall, after a face-off or before a face-off, Ron Hextall took the puck and shot it at the head of a Ranger. And Simon thought that was a great, great thing. And that was the last great thing Hextall did for us.
Yeah, I do recall. Look, there was Bill Torrey was gone. He had gone to Florida. Al Arbor was, kind of hanging on this last little bit. He didn't like what was going on. The ownership had changed. It was not a great period for one of the most historic franchises, and they made mistakes, with a bunch of players. I was just one of the cards in a deck. That's it. And look at the Rangers, a great experience, winning a cup, getting our name on the cup, ending 54 years of what would have been 3 generations of misery. Like all those things, they all happen for the right reason. And I'm appreciative of them now. At the time, heartbroken, didn't want to leave. My heart was, with the Islanders, but it was way out of my control, that's for sure, and way beyond my pay grade.
How intense was the pressure in New York compared to other markets in terms of media?
Well, failure was expected. We didn't succeed. We didn't succeed for 54 years, 3 generations of failure. So, good, get in line. You're in a long line of losers that didn't, get the ball across the line. New York is a different animal in the sense that you had two, and Stan would know this better, but you had the reporters that would talk about your play on the ice. And if Stan ever was critical of me on the ice and was more critical of me, then I really need to have my head examined because I should be more critical of myself. But then there was the tabloid reporters that would, kind of follow you around to look for the dirty deeds, all the things that you shouldn't be doing. That's New York. Toronto, which is right behind me here, where I played my last 4 years, they were critical of you on the ice, but nowhere near like New York. Toronto still loves you, even if you're the 4th line guy who accomplishes nothing, they still love you. But they don't have the tabloid type stuff. So in New York, there was pressure, but it wasn't more pressure than you would have put on yourself. And I think that's why that team in 94 succeeded, is we probably had 7 or 8 guys that could have been captain of that team. Now, we had the best captain in all of sport, not hockey, sport. So we were okay there. But we had guys that, came over like a Craig McTavish, who took the last face-off, came from the Oilers where he played 20 minutes a game, was the captain, and said, I'm willing to play 6 minutes, but take that last face-off. Or Doug Lidstone, or Steve Larmer, or Esa Tikkanen, or Kevin Lowe, who would have been a captain on every other team. So leadership was in spades. So the pressure was, we insulated ourselves and said, we're good enough, we're fast enough, we're competent enough to do this, and we will win. And that's Mark's message to us. And we followed up, and we did win. So it was the right group at the right time with the right experience. We had all the bases covered in every way. And I'm proud of that group. To this day, I look at them and go, they've accomplished something. We're at 87 years now, one Stanley Cup in New York, big city with a lot of money and a lot of good teams. Pretty good year, boys. Well done. Right from day one, when Mike Keenan showed us the Miracle Mets parade and said, this could be you. Well, he was right. That was us. We had the parade right down Broadway. What a parade.
Well, I got to tell you, you're ripping my heart out with these stories because, Lafayette hits the crossbar
I don't
still.
remember who we played in the finals.
Yeah.
Let me look it up. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
But you know what? I was always a Mike Richter fan. I love the way he played. And to this day, and whenever I see him interviewed, the guy is just so full of joy. And anyway, just a quick. This is my book that I wrote, and there is a Grant Fear story in there if you ever want to pick up a copy. But your championship year, like I got to meet Trent Yanni in my journey, and he was playing for Chicago at the time, and I asked him about Mike Keenan, and he said he was an absolute dick for no reason. And what was your experience with Mike?
Well, my experience with Mike goes way, way back. So when I was 15, I had a chance to play with what would have been the Peterborough Petes, a junior A team. But if you went to junior A, you couldn't go to college. You had to make a choice. So I decided to go to the college route. He wanted me to play the junior route and came actually to Pickering, Ontario, home of 8 nuclear reactors. Okay, that's what I'm known for. And tried to get me to play with Peterborough. And at that point, I told them, my parents want me to be the first educated Healy. And he right away told me I was a loser and I would never accomplish anything. And at 15, that is a hard message to take. And at some point, I did think maybe I made the wrong decision. Well, fast forward to those days in LA, Jerry, you talked about. And if you remember at the Forum, the visiting team had to walk by the home locker room to get into the rink. And when Mike took the job in Philly, I could not wait. I stood outside that locker room until when he made the NHL, made his way past me, and I came up and told him, way to go. Congratulations. You finally made the NHL, you loser. Shook his hand, and I went back in the locker room. Now, he ends up coaching the Rangers. Oh, boy. Please tell me he's forgotten that. Please tell me he doesn't remember that. And to this day, he still pretends he doesn't remember it. Trust me. The thing with Mike, maybe we needed that coach at that time to win with that group of players. He was part of our team. He was a big part of our team. He was part of our team when one of the wheels fell off the car. And that's all part of books that have been written. But that was maybe the leadership and the guy in charge that we needed to run the show. And he let the Stars run the show. We played 4 defense that year, not 6, 4. We basically played 1 goalie. We played 2 lines, maybe a checking line. So he loaded up with the Stars and gave them all the rope they needed. But, where people have problems with Mike at times, there's a line in the sand that we all draw in our families, in our relationships with our kids. If you don't draw that line in the sand, then he just keeps pushing the sand until you either are over the cliff or he finds a different place for you to play. I drew the line in the sand really damn quick. So it was, I put the line in the sand before he even came to give me a line in the sand. So basically, there were guys he left alone, and then there were guys that he didn't. And if Trent was one of them, probably apologize to him. But, get on the bus. There's a lot on it because he was a tough coach, but maybe the right coach at the right time for our group. And at the end of the day, his name goes on the cup just like mine, and we all delivered together. So I'll applaud Mike and the rest of the group for that. But there's no doubt that there were times when I was not just the backup goalie, but a psychologist for a whole group of players that needed a little bit of hope and help. I can tell you that.
Comment on this. The most underrated player on that 1994 Stanley Cup Ranger team was Kevin Lowe.
Yeah, Kev was, the one thing I'll say about Kevin, everybody needs somebody that when things kind of go a little wonky, that Kevin can step in and go, all right, let's stop right here, full stop. And when you're some of the bigger players on that team, it is hard to go up to a Mark Messier and tell him, I think you're going a little off kilter here. You're going outside the guardrails. Tough for Glenn Healy to tell him that when I haven't played a game in a month. It is different when Kevin Lowe can tell him, let's get back in the guardrails. Let's get back in our lane. Let's get back to what's important. And Kevin played that role and more in spades with everybody. He was 98.6. He never changed. He was as steady as they could be. Had to play with Zubov. Not an easy guy to play with. Squirrel. Like, that's Zuby. He's gone. Like, what's he behind the other team's net for? You think about the first goal when we played Jerry's team. You had Leach, or Zubov basically passed to Leach. They're defensemen. They're almost at the goal line. Who's playing defense? Mike Richter? But playing with Zuby, knowing what we needed for our team, Kevin was, again, coulda, shoulda been a captain anywhere in the league, but except where the best leader in all of sports is the captain. But don't underestimate his constant approach to normalcy and just stability, because he provided that in so many ways. And it is hard to look at a guy who's got 5 Stanley Cups and go, what do you know? Really? Glenn, what do you know? Yeah.
Would you have
So-
stopped Pavel Bure on that penalty shot?
No, gosh, Jerry, my groin to be out over on Bay Street over here. Like, that was a defining moment in that series, right? That was a pivotal moment, right? Losing game one.
That was the moment
sick.
I knew we
Yes.
had lost. Yeah.
Losing game one when we outshot them, 27-1. And, your team are all historically applauding Kirk McLean. Good luck with that one. But when you lose those games and you go, we should have won, and you can't get it back, that hurt. But that game, that play, that save, that was it, because we came back and basically took that series over, up 3-1. The only thing stopping us from winning in game 5 was the parade and planning it and flying people in and buying champagne and all the things that don't matter until you win it. But Ricky was, again, another guy. You look at it, Brian Leach won the Conn Smythe. It could have went to Mess. It could have went to Brian Leach. It could have went to Matteau. It could have went to so many players on the same team. And it didn't. It went to Brian. He deserved it. But, man, the other guys are right in the conversation.
Leach was incredible. He just was incredible. I picked him for the MVP when it was over. So.
Who is the greatest person you've ever dealt with? One of your colleagues from the NHL? Maybe the funniest, the easiest one to deal with?
2 people. First, I'd say Ted Lindsay. I love Ted. Ted he's the reason we have a players association. He's the reason we have the rights that we have. He's the reason that I made the money I made. He's the reason I got to play in the conditions I got to play in. Ted got inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and they asked him, "Who do you want to come to the Hockey Hall of Fame?" He said, "My wife, of course." So I know women are allowed. No women are allowed to come to the induction. He says, "Well, I'm not coming either." The next year, guess who came to the Hall of Fame inductions? All the wives, women, as they should have came for many, many years. He said to me one time, he said, "Glenn, I like the corners." And I thought to myself, "Ted, I'm a goalie. Like, I've never been in a corner in my life." And I said, what does this mean?" He said, "Well, here's what it means. When I go in the corner, and maybe this helps me in the role I'm in now. When I go in the corner, I can tell right away whether I'm going in with a man or I'm going in with a chicken shit. So in your life, never be a chicken shit. Go in the corners and make a difference for people." And that to me was probably some of the best advice that I've ever gotten from anybody. And then off the ice, Paul Kelly, who was the executive director for the NHL PA for a couple of years, the work he's done for players, the work he did to hunt down and prosecute Alan Eagleson. He always did what was right for the players, always. And he is inspirational to me. Smart, genuine, cared about me when he didn't know me. And that when I got to know him, really cared about me when I got to know him. He sits on our board now with the NHL Alumni, and he is our Kevin Lowe and our voice of reason. He is 98.6. So Ted and Paul, on ice and off ice, I think are two big influences for me in all the right ways for the right reasons.
In show business, which person, movies or stand-up, which person makes Glenn Healy laugh the most?
Oh, goodness. Jon Stewart. I'm sorry, but I don't know where he gets his material from. Do you know, Stan?
No.
Like, oh, baby. South of the 49th here, he's got more than enough material. But I love his spirit. I love the way he kind of lays it all out. And then there's a Scottish comedian that I dearly love that is probably not PG, so we probably don't want to throw that out. But you know what? For me, music is the pulse for me. I don't get a chance like when I played. When I played, I was allowed one song on the, let's call it, this will make you laugh, the iPod or the iPad, right? One song. That was it. It was Hellbound Train by the Vic Police Pipe Band. And I would love this song, and it was great. It was rocking. It was guitars and pipes, and I'd, get into it and look up, and there wouldn't be a single player in the locker room with me. Not even Aki Berg stayed in for my song. And then my song would end and they'd all come back. So music drives me too. But for the most part, not allowed to play the music at home, not allowed to play it in the dressing room. I'm kind of a lone soldier all by myself, but we're making it work, Stan, in every way.
What's one moment from your career that meant everything to you? If you have to pick one.
Oh boy. You know what? You can't pick one because I have three daughters. So I think the biggest joy that I could have is to pass on to them the right life lessons, and to see them grow and become incredible people, and to know that my wife Susie and I have done the right thing by them. That's the greatest treasure to me. That if I can give that to them, the right, pave the road for them to drive on it, do the right thing by them, and know that their best days are ahead. Like that's rest easy, man. That's a job well done. So those are, and when they were first born, that not knowing what it's like to be a parent and try to figure it out, and as Miss Buckley says, the chaos of a mother's heart, like knowing that, and the chaos of a father's heart to try to figure out how you bring up three girls. We've done a pretty good job. That's been my biggest legacy, I think. The other stuff kind of just happened by luck. I was lucky. The rest, that's what I'm most proud of.
Well, anybody who made it to the NHL without being drafted, man, you climbed Mount Everest in your bare feet. So don't ever sell yourself short, Glenn. You were a great goalie, and I always enjoyed watching you play. I'm 8 months older than you, so I saw your whole career. So, and I just want to know, what's that picture behind you?
Well, we've got a bunch. Well, we've got that would be us on stage with Paul McCartney. So that's at the Air Canada Center. Yeah. So the one good-looking guy on the right, that would be me with the bagpipes and the kilt. My office, it's quite funny. I can give you a little tour while we're here, but they all consider it to be the Scottish War Room, right? So you've got your William Wallace sword. We've got a scene from a battle. We've got some bagpipes. Stan would love it. I've got a great picture of Al Arbor with the Stanley Cup. Al was my guy. I've got Ted Lindsay, Mark Messier when we won the Cup in '94. But they call this the Scottish War Room. This is where there's a lot of yelling that goes on at times, a lot of passion, a lot of tears. But this is my home for now, and it's different than every other room, I can tell you, in this office. Much different. But that would be McCartney for us up on stage.
Are you still in touch with him?
Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
No, gosh, no. No, I kind of, he walked around and shook everyone's hand. He was great. When we played with Paul McCartney, he basically said this: okay, 11:15, we're going to come get you. It's Band on the Run. It's Yesterday. It's Mulligan Tire, which is the song we play, and Let It Be. And at 11:15, they came and got us. We went below the stage, and there's about a 19-beat hold where the drones just get played, no notes, and the band came up and they mic'd the drones right across the Air Canada Center, Scotiabank Arena now, and then we began the song and basically played the extent of the song, and then we were off the stage. Let It Be. Matt Sundin was hurt that night. He didn't get to play with the Leafs. He hurt his eye, and he showed up at the concert. And if you see the pictures we have, there's a little blonde head that's watching from below the stage, and that's Matt Sundin. Arguably the greatest Leaf that's played, and he's at the concert. But it was shake his hand, say hello, and see you at 11:15, and show's over. And rinse and repeat 4 more times. Each time as nervous as you could ever be to play with a legend. But I'm really now, because I've done it so much, that drummer that Stan's talking about, I'm the fifth Beatle. I really am the fifth Beatle. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's a tradition of ours that Maeve tells us a joke at the end of the show. Maeve, do you have one for us today?
Well, because we're talking music, I can tell Glenn there are 3 tunes he'll never be able to play on the bagpipes. The first one is "How Can I Miss You If You Don't Go Away." The second one is "I'll Never Forget What's Her Name," and a very tender love song called "I Can't Get Over You, So Get Up and Answer the Telephone Yourself." However, this is a famous book. It's called Hockey Shorts. You know about it?
Yes, I
you are in
have
it.
I know. Yes.
Yes. So I want to tell the fans why is he in it. Here's the quote. This is when Mike Richter was the #1 goal. And Glenn Healy said, "I'm the only one the lockout didn't affect." Which is why he's in it. He's in it. Not many guys are in this who are funny like he is. I want to close, first of all, just to say, Glenn, huge thanks. But I want you to give Elena the information about how we can help your association. We'll start plugging it next one. Love you, buddy.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time. And
We really appreciate you taking the time to join us on Bottle Rocket. And to our listeners, make sure you're following, subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.
and should I apologize to Jerry now for the sorry? Sorry about 94, Jerry.
I'm
Sorry.
slowly getting over it, Glenn. I'm
I
slowly
know.
getting over it.
And I'm actually
but
lying. I'm not sorry about 94.
Bye.
Anyways, see you guys. Cheers.
Yeah.